the primary trainer for all things evergreen in Aspen. And today we're going to be talking about browse categories and collection spotlights. So before we jump in, I always like to get a feel for what everyone's comfort level with the topic that we're going over. So is anybody completely brand new to Aspen and setting up or creating browse categories in the catalog? Okay, great. Great. This is the goal of this training is to get you comfortable with using it. So when we first went live with Aspen Discovery, which is what we call the OPAC or the public catalog, it's the name of the software. Um, every library had the option to volunteer someone at the library to become the Aspen admin. Now, every library has a customized version of the catalog. They're also referred to as instances. And so for libraries that maybe just didn't have the time or the manpower to administer their own instance of the catalog, I would take over and I would do the customizations and create any of the browse categories and so on for them. As time has gone on, libraries have been able to really kind of take over for themselves. And sometimes people leave the library and that position is open. Sometimes people realize, hey, that looks like fun. I want to do it too. So there's always a flow of someone wanting or needing to learn more about how to customize your instance of the catalog. And browse categories is the one of the first is pretty much the first thing that patrons see when they open your catalog. And it's one of the first stops of customization that we do. So today we're going to be going over the creation and the editing of browse categories and collection spotlights, and we're going to learn what the difference between those two are. So I'm going to share my screen, and today we're going to be working in the WLS instance of the catalog. If any of you'd like me to showcase your catalog, I'm happy to do so. And then when it comes times to collection spotlights, there's two libraries that I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using Larchmont and Bronxville today for my examples. And if anybody has added collection spotlights to their website that they want to showcase, we can always feature you. So throughout this training, we're only going to be meeting for an hour today. We may not need the full hour. I'm always happy to stick around longer though, if we need to. If you have any questions, if you need me to pause, repeat, please feel free to let me know, either unmute yourself or drop something into the chat. I'll be pausing throughout just to see if anyone enters questions in there. And I will ask before you leave, if you have to log off early, just drop your name and library in the chat just so I can mark you for attendance. Okay, so let's get going. Let's start rocking and rolling. So I am looking at the Westchester Library System instance of the catalog. Every library's instance of the catalog is going to have the same format of the catalog, meaning that no matter which catalog a patron is looking at, they're going to see the library logo, they're going to see menu tabs, they're going to have a search bar, and as they scroll down, they're going to have these tiles and book covers, which are our browse categories. Now, for libraries that didn't have an Aspen administrator, WLS would create the browse categories. And so you'll notice that some catalogs, the browse categories are the same or same as the WLS ones. Now, if that is the case and you're taking on this role and you want to start off fresh, that is absolutely available to you. You just have to let me know so I can just separate you from our browse categories. And you're going to see what I mean by that in just a few minutes. These tiles are completely customizable, and the whole goal of them is to showcase specific collections in the catalog. Now, you can get as vague or as detailed with them as you want. So in looking at the WLS catalog, we're going to go through these just so you can get an idea of what you can add to your catalog. So we have a recently added browse category, and this is going to pull in any title in the catalog that has been newly added or newly linked to the catalog. So the title can be an older title, but if there's new copies linked to it, those are going to show up here. We also have a coming soon browse category, and this is going to include any title that has an on order status. So the bib record's been created, but we're still waiting for those copies to come in. But patrons can see what's coming soon, and they can also place holds on them while they're waiting. Whenever you click on a browse category, there's going to be a magnifying glass here that repeats the name, and these are linked to search results. So if you were to click on this link, this is going to pull you into the search results, and so this is going to give a list view of all of those browse categories. And patrons can apply additional filters. They can narrow it down, and they can further customize the search results from that browse category. I'm going to use my home icon to go back to our home page to revisit our browse categories. Underneath the main tiles, you see these smaller ones, and these are considered subcategories. So you can further branch out and really showcase and get really descriptive and have a lot of fun with what you're trying to show your patrons. Patrons also have the option to further customize whether or not they want to see a browse category. They do have to be logged in with their library card in order to have access, but if they don't want to see a specific browse category, they can always hide it, and it's going to remove that, remove it from their view. They can also choose from looking at it from a covers option, which is the default, to a grid. And that's going to switch to this format where the title and author is going to be next to the book cover. Also, if patrons want to unhide any browse categories, they just have to scroll to the bottom of their page and see show hidden. And they can choose to turn that back on just by clicking on that show these browse categories. Okay, so I'm going to use my little arrow to navigate towards the top. So I'm just going to go through these. We have a New York Times bestsellers. This is available to all libraries. These get updated. And then fiction and I've built out quite a few subcategories. So you can see I have classics, contemporary, fantasy, historical fiction, horror, humor, and so on. And the same goes for nonfiction, young adult, children. When we create browse categories, there's two ways that we can do this. First, though, you have to have an Aspen admin account set up for you. Now, if you don't have one, you just need to submit a help desk ticket, and then we will get you going with that. When we first went live with Aspen and we were adding library staff as Aspen administrators, there was really only one option for the type of admin role that library staff could have, and it was a little all-encompassing. Now we have the option to give a specified admin role of just creating browse categories, collection spotlights, and book lists, because someone may just want to be able to create the browse categories, but they don't need to be able, or they're not interested or don't need to be able to customize all of the other things, like all of the links, the hours, the holiday closures, or the themes. Now, if you're curious about setting that up, again, just submit a help desk ticket and we'll get that all set for you. All right. So the two ways that we can create our browse categories is one going to be through a search, and the second is going to be through a list. So does someone want to throw out a topic or a genre for a browse category to create?
For my library, I would like to create an adult fantasy section.
Fantasy section. Okay. So there's a couple of ways that we can start this process. If we're doing a search, you can start off pretty vague in actually typing out your keyword or switching it to a subject. Or you can do just a broad search, meaning you don't put anything in that search bar and you just click that search button. It's going to take a little bit longer, but once you let's see how long it takes. It's going to take a couple seconds. So it's going to take us to just random search results here. And so you can see I have some filters attached. So I'm just going to clear all of those. And I could just open up the series and the subject and look for what I'm trying to create. But because Kimberly gave such a specific example, we're going to try searching. Let's just do fantasy. Fantasy. And I am going to switch that to subject, and I'm going to search one more time. So I have 142,000 search results. That's going to be, that might be too many to include in my browse categories. One difference between working in the WS catalog versus working in a specific library's catalog is you're going to have an additional tab here next to entire collection that's going to specify what your library owns pertaining to your search. So for you guys, I would recommend switching over. So we would say instead of entire collection, it would say available at Briarcliff. Now, because we have such a large number of search results here, I am going to use my facets or my filters to narrow this down. So I want to think first about format. Do I care about which formats are included in my browse categories? That's going to depend on your preference. For me, I like to narrow it down to books. So I'm going to open up that format dropdown and select books. And I can see that's going to bring me down from 140 to 17,000. I'm also going to lock the facets that I'm applying to this search. I'm going to go to my fiction and nonfiction, and I'm going to switch it to fiction. That's going to narrow it down even more. I'm going to lock it. And then I'm going to choose my audience. So Kimberly said she wants adult fantasy, so that's what I'm going to choose for this. And now I'm down to 6,000. Typically, when it comes to browse categories, I'm more comfortable with the search results being in the hundreds. I'd like to keep it under 100. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the added in the last filter, and I'm going to see what a year versus 6 months gives me. Now, depending on the type of browse category you're creating, you may want to keep it even more recent. So for when I mentioned the coming soon browse category, all we do is we select the on order. And so that's going to include anything with an on order status. Whereas recently added, that's going to be anything that has the 2 months, month, or week applied to it. So I'm going to select year for this. And so that's going to take me down to 281. And I'm going to take a scroll and I'm going to see what's included in here. And if I'm happy with what I'm seeing, I can move on. After our filters have been applied, we've narrowed down our search results, we can still sort this. So the default is going to be sorted to best match, and it's this drop down right at the top of my first search result here. And typically, I like to sort it by date purchase descending because it's going to pull up the newer copies to the top, and it'll even have a new banner on top of the cover art there. Now, I'm going to go over to my search tools dropdown. That's going to be on the right side. And I'm going to open that up and I'm going to click Add to Browse. Add to Browse is going to ask, would I like to update an existing browse category or create a new one? So if I already had this adult fantasy browse category created, and maybe it was time to freshen it up, um, I could update existing, and it's going to ask me to choose from the drop down of available browse categories. But since we're creating a new one, that's what I'm choosing. And I have to give it a category name. So adult fantasy. Kimberly, do you want to keep it called adult fantasy or would,
Yeah, I think that's fine.
okay. Now beneath your category name, you have a parent category. And so this is for when we create subcategories, we have to choose a parent. But this is a standalone right now, so we're going to skip over that. And we're going to take a look at display on blankety blank homepage. That's going to be selected by default, but you can turn that off if you want to just create browse categories and maybe not have them posted to the homepage just yet. So we are going to post this and I'm going to click create new and I get my successful message. Now, if for whatever reason it was not successful, maybe there's a duplicate name in my existing browse categories, or there's just something preventing it from saving, Aspen will tell me that it could not create that browse category. I'm going to click on my home icon and I'm going to go back to my home page and just to physically see that that was successful in saving. And so there's my new category. And as I scroll down, those are my books. Now, one thing to keep in mind when we create browse categories from searches is based on those filters, these will automatically update on their own. So and it's looking at that added in the last filter. So as anything that matches the filters I've applied to that search, if Aspen recognizes those, they're going to be included in this browse category. So technically, this is kind of a set it and forget it way to create your browse categories. However, what you do need to keep in mind is sometimes things sneak in here and you'll be looking at these just to make sure, and you'll see something that maybe doesn't really make sense for why it's here. So right off the back, this is kind of jumping out to me, Cinderella's fling with the billionaire. If I was taking a look at this, I would think this would make more sense to go into, adult romance, perhaps. Um, but based on whatever's in the description, that could also be why it's finding its way into your browse categories. So periodically, you do want to take a look and you want to make sure that everything is loading the way you think it should be. Okay. The second way to create a browse category is through a list. Now, you're going to start that process fairly similarly to just a search. So we'll do teen fantasy for this next example. And fantasy, yep. Wait for my search results to load. Okay. Showing results using keyword index. Okay. Search instead using subject index. And you know what? Yeah, I think I'd prefer that. So because I don't know if this is happening to you guys, when I'm logged in with my admin account, sometimes my searches retain the filters I've applied to them. And so what I do is I just click clear all, and then I start over from there. Now, underneath each title and information, there's an add to list option. And so I have the option to add it to an existing list, or I can create a new one. This is a little bit more time consuming to create it through a list, but one of the advantages of the list is this does not update on its own. You actually have to go in and you have to edit the content within it. So you have a little bit more control in what's being displayed through this way. When you're creating a browse category through a list, you want to make sure that the access is turned on to public and that show in search results is set to yes. And then as you go through your search results, you can just click that add to list option. Another way to add to your list or create a list is to go into your account. And so you can get to your account in two ways, either by clicking on your name and going to your list, or through your hamburger menu and going to your account. In your list, you'll have the option to create a new one, or you can find one that you just created. And I have quite a few lists in here, so it might take a while to find it. Have to go to the second page. Boop, boop, boop. Teen fantasy. So for my already existing lists, I can edit this, so I can change the title, I can add a description, and I can also change the settings on here as well. And then I can update it when I'm ready. And then to add multiple titles, I can copy and paste titles or ISBNs to quickly add content to my list. So if I've run a report or maybe I've just been creating a list on my own, I can copy and paste that in here very quickly and add to the list. If any titles don't exist in the catalog, Aspen will tell you that they could not locate that specific title. When you're happy with the content of your list and you're ready to create the browse category from it, you're going to go over to your list tools dropdown and you're going to add to browse. The same way that we did when we created it from search results is we're going to give it a name. And then if it's a subcategory, which maybe we want to do a subcategory for the adult one, and when I open up this drop down, I have quite a few browse categories listed here. And so I'm just going to start typing the name of the browse category that I'm trying to find as the parent. If other libraries have created browse categories and they've made them public and they're usable for other libraries, you'll be able to see who owns that list by the library code in the parentheses. Because sometimes you're going to see multiple browse categories with the same name. So, for example, adult fiction is fairly popular, and you can see who created it. So, this is Westchester, and that's Largemont. But I'm using the adult fantasy as my parent. That was successful. And now I'm just going to go back to my home page to see. Do a little refresh. Boop, boop. There's Teen Fantasy, and those are my two books. Okay, I see something in the chat. Let's just take away. Is there a way to remove books that don't belong in that category? So it depends on how you created that browse category. So that's one of the drawbacks to creating it from search results. You can't just manually take one book out of it because Aspen is pulling everything from those filters and search terms. So if you want more control over what loads, you should do it through a list. And I saw another question. Allison says, is there a specific reason for keeping around 100 books in a browse category? Is it more of a strain on the catalog? Does it take longer to load more titles than that? 10,000 titles is obviously too many, but would 150 titles still be okay? Yes, 150 titles is absolutely okay. So as you saw from the adult fantasy, I believe it was like 200 and something. The reason why I recommend keeping it in that hundreds range is because it does strain the catalog if it has to load too much, because it's loading the cover art and it's loading all of the mark record information. So the title, the author, the description, it's also pulling from Syndetics Unbound. So the more it has to load, the longer it takes. So I would say 200, 300 is fine. 500, you're going to see it taking a few more seconds to load. Okay. Do some of the filters not have a lock option? Um, let's go to, I believe most of them do. I think you can lock all. And of course, it's not right in front of me, so I can't give you a straight answer right now. Your available now at cannot be locked. So available now at, this is going to only show anything that has an available status at specific libraries. And so that can change pretty drastically. So that's not lockable. Um, Actually, wait, maybe that's not true. Let's try. Boo, boo, boo. Let's try Ardsley. Yeah, Ardsley added in the last. Do not give me the option to lock. Let's just see. Yeah. Yeah. So if you don't see the option, if you don't see the lock icon up here, that you won't be able to use that. Okay. That is the one way that would not lock. Also the publication date. Yeah, that's correct, Wendy. Good questions, everybody.
Allison, I do have a question for you.
Yes,
So I did see in that list, there's like first grade books, second grade books. How are those created?
that's a great question. So, um, let's go back to our search results. And those are created using the reading level filters. And so as you scroll down, you have your accelerated reading level, interest level. And so you would base it on that, your audience, so juvenile, audience level, and then you could also use shelf location to really narrow that down. Okay, so we've created a browse category. We created two browse categories, one from search results, one from list, but now we have to maintain them. Now we have to edit them and see how many times people are clicking on them. So we're going to take a trip into the admin menu. And so you can get there by clicking on your hamburger menu and going to your Aspen administration link. Now, you guys are going to look for your local catalog menu. And if you want to just quickly be able to find that, you could use your search bar and either just type local catalog if you remember what that menu is called, or you can just type in browse categories. And that's going to pull it up for you too. Now there's two options for browse categories. One is browse category groups, and then one is just browse categories. And it can be kind of tricky trying to remember the difference between the two. So browse category groups are the containers And then browse categories, those are going to be the list of all of the existing browse categories. So to show you what I mean by that is I'm going into browse categories, and this is just a list of all of the browse categories that are shared. And I have a little navigation bar. And so if I have permission to view them, I can either click in the ID or that edit button, and I can see that it's shared with the Ardsley Library, if there's a description, if there's a date range. Now, sometimes you won't have access to that edit button or you won't be able to view it, and that's because it wasn't shared with all of the libraries. Now, going into browse category groups, this is specific to your catalog's instance. And so you're going to see all of the libraries listed for me because it's me and I'm the Queen of Aspen and I have access to everyone. But you guys will only see your library locations. So I'm going into Westchester Library System. And as I scroll down, these are my browse categories. And I have these sort arrows so I can drag them around to reorder them. So if I want them to be alphabetical or if I want them to be grouped by genre, I can do that. If I don't want a specific browse category on here anymore, I can delete them. I'm not deleting it from existing, I'm just deleting it from the display in my catalog. So when you go into your browse category groups, and let's say, yeah, you don't really want the 2025 most popular anymore because we're in April, you can go ahead and delete that and it will remove it. But don't worry, you're not deleting it from existence. You also, if you've created your own browse categories, you will have the option to edit it. And a cool feature of the edit option is it will allow you to see how many times these are getting clicked on and shown and dismissed. So what did I click on? I clicked on the coming soon for on order. And today it was shown twice, 7 titles were clicked, and it was dismissed 23 times. And you can see that for each of the subcategories. So if I go into the adult, and excuse me, it's not for today, it's for all time. This was shown quite a few times. Over 56,000 titles were clicked on, and it was dismissed 700 times. So you can get a sense of how much the patrons are liking the browse categories you're creating. You can also rename the label of it. You can choose to share it. So selected library is going to be set in this library field here. And then selecting everyone is going to choose to share it with everyone in the system. And that's what pops up in the list of browse categories that we just looked at. You can give a description for browse categories, and then you can also give a date range to your browse categories. So if you have a seasonal browse category, or maybe there's a specific history month that you want to showcase, you can do a start date and an end date. So you don't have to go in and delete it. You'll just know that it will expire at the end of the month. Okay. Questions? So, switching gears to collection spotlights. So, a browse category shows up in your catalog. Where does a collection spotlight show up? A collection spotlight is meant to get patrons to go to the catalog. So, collection spotlights are showcasing your curated collections elsewhere. Typically, you're going to see those in the website and they act as carousels. So anyone that knows what Syndetics Unbound is, this is typically the same thing as Syndetics Unbound, but it's directly linked through Aspen. And so I'm going to show you two library websites that are using collection spotlights. And so the first one we're going to take a look at is the Largemont Library. And they have a page just for teens in their website. And they've created these collection spotlights based on certain genres. So they have mystery and thriller, not too mature content, adventure, cozy romance, historical fiction, and fantasy. So if I were to click on any of these titles, let's say Love and Gelato, it takes me directly into the catalog and I can place a hold on that title. Now, if I were to just yeah, I think the difference here, and I have all of the Syndetics Unbound information. So it's not going to give me the whole list, but it will take me to that title. Switching over to Bronxville, they also have collection spotlights set up for their teen page too. And so they have a different carousel option here as well. And if I were to click on it, it brings me right into the catalog too, so I can go ahead and place a hold on it. These are created almost the same way that we would create browse categories. We can create them through searches or we can create them through lists. So let's go back to the catalog. And I'm going to use gardening as my subject. Now, something that you guys should know if you want to add collection spotlights to your website, you have to have existing access to your website. So not everyone is an admin for your library's website. Some of you guys have designated webmasters. So you guys can create the collection spotlights and then send that person the information to add it into the website. So that's a caveat for creating collection spotlights. So I'm creating a collection spotlight to showcase my gardening books at my library. I need to set some filters here. So this is nonfiction. I want it to be a book. Gonna lock those down. My audience is general. Lock that down. My subject is gardening. And I have 435. I want to get that number down just a little bit. But if I were to specify added in the last year, you can see that like I'm only going to have 8 search results. And maybe I want a little bit more than that. So maybe I just leave it be. The thing about collection spotlights, though, is there is a limit to the amount that it will be shown in that carousel. And so I think it's about 25 titles. So if you weren't going to narrow it down even more, just keep in mind the collection spotlight might not show everything from your search results in there. So for this sake, I will just set it to added in the last year. And so we have our 8 added. Going to switch my sort to date purchase descending, and you guys can sort this any which way you want. This is your catalog. This is whatever you want to do to it. As far as customization goes, it is completely in your hands to do so. So once that's set up, I'm going to my search tools, and this time I'm going to create Spotlight. So if there is an existing Spotlight that I'm adding these titles to, I could choose from this drop down, but since if I'm creating a new one, just like with browse categories, I'm going to give it a name. So I'm going to create Spotlight. And once I click create Spotlight, it takes me into a new interface. So this is going to be my view collection Spotlight. And if I scroll down, this is going to show me the number of items to display. So 25 is the limit. Display on all libraries. If there's a description, and as I scroll down even further, this is showing me how it was created. So it was through a search form. And this is the code that I would give to my webmaster if I wasn't the one embedding it into the website. Now, let's say I want to edit this a little bit. I'm going to click on the edit button. And this is going to allow me to change the name, specify which location to share this with. I can increase the number of items to display so that 25 is just the default, but I can increase or decrease. Your spotlight style, so the default is horizontal carousel, but you have horizontal, vertical, single title with next button, or text only list. You can include the authors in your collection spotlights, and you can also show the ratings of items. So some catalogs have turned on the star rating, so patrons can rate a title out of 5 stars. You can choose between a small or medium cover size, and if you know CSS, you can add additional customization through that. There's 2 options to display the list as. One is tabbed and one is drop down. You can create, so for example, if my collection spotlight is for gardening, I can create additional tabs, just like we can create additional subcategories for browse categories. I can do that for collection spotlight. So I can have one just for landscaping or roses or succulents, what have you. And I can choose from existing ones, or I can choose to create a new one. So I'll save any changes I have, and then I have a preview button, and this is going to show me how these are getting displayed. So this is the horizontal carousel that we were looking at. And if I were to go back and switch that up, not that one, go up. Horizontal, save. I have to use my little arrow to go through it. Now, to manage your collection spotlights, that's going to be in the same menu as your browse categories. So local catalog enrichment, it's going to be right beneath your browse categories. And just like with the categories, you have 2 options. You have your collection spotlight lists and then just your collection spotlights. So your list is a little bit more self-explanatory, whereas this is going to include all of the collection spotlights that you have access to. Whereas your just plain old collection spotlights, those are going to be the ones that you've created. And you can see I was working with Kim Larson over at Largemont getting her set up here. And also because I'm the queen of Aspen and I get everyone's. Now I'm just going to use Bronxville. I'm going to continue to use Bronxville for my example here, and clicking into an existing browse category, I can always edit them after the fact too. So if I want to increase the number of items that display in a collection, I'm sorry if I said browse category, collection spotlight, I can always increase that. So I'm just pausing for questions. What are the benefits and drawbacks to sharing browse categories with all of WLS? So the benefit would be ease of access. So you don't have to recreate the wheel. So for example, the coming soon browse category. This is shared with everyone. So you don't have to set that up yourself, and it's kind of set it and forget it. Same thing with recently added and New York Times bestsellers. Um, Everyone has access to those. So it's just one less thing that you have to create. There really isn't a drawback because once you create something and you share it with everyone, the only thing that other libraries can do is choose to remove it from their display after they've added it. So they can't delete it completely from Aspen. Only the person that created that browse category can delete it permanently. So there really isn't a drawback. The one thing I do see sometimes, which is more of a like faux pas, is if it's a browse category that is location specific to the library that created it. So like some libraries have a staff picks browse category. And so it like, for example, like Harrison staff picks wouldn't really make sense for, Katona to have that browse category in their catalog. And I'm not saying that's what I saw, but that's just the example I'm using. So that would be a drawback, is just maybe someone not paying attention specifically to the title. Nope, that's not what I want. Stop. I wanted to look at the chat. Okay. All right. Are we able to create a list from elsewhere, example Canva, and then import it to Aspen? So yeah, you can have lists from elsewhere. The way you would import it though is really through copying and pasting those titles or the content from that list. So, which can be pretty helpful if it's already created elsewhere. You just want to copy and paste the title. You don't need to include the author or any other information. Okay. And then Katrin says, we have printed lists of recommended leading. If I want to make a spotlight based on those lists, can I search for each title and add the titles to the spotlight? Yeah, you can do that absolutely. You can do that for browse categories too. It would, if you were doing it that way, I would just type the title into a list. So I would create a list and then add multiple titles and just look at the printed list and type those titles from there. Does that help answer your question there? I don't think it would make sense for you to go through the process of searching for it in the catalog. If you've already created the list, I would hope that you've already confirmed that it's in the catalog already. Okay, great. Okay. So we're at 11:48. I'm gonna just stop sharing for just a moment, and I kind of want to check in with everyone, and I kind of want to see, are we still scared of creating browse categories? I'm gonna call names. Cassandra, are you scared of creating browse categories, or does this seem a little bit easier?
I think I'll figure it out over time. It's like between this training and playing around with the system, I think should be okay. Should be fairly easy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like all things, it's one thing to watch a training, and then it's another thing to actually do it yourself. Um, I think for me, when I was getting the hang of it, was remembering the difference between a browse category and a collection spotlight. And so, collection spotlight, all we need to know is it's outside of the catalog and it's usually in the website. And it's the purpose of that is just to get people to place holds on what you're trying to showcase. Whereas browse categories, that's your home page. see some things popping up in the chat. No fear here. I love that. Looks good, making more sense. Seems like it'll be fine once I get playing with it. And then, is it okay for multiple users to work off the same admin account? Yeah, so, well, from an IT perspective, I don't love account sharing, but when it comes to admin accounts for libraries, there's no real limit to the number of accounts to set up. So some libraries have like 8 people that have admin accounts set up for them, whereas, one library just has one. So I think if you wanted multiple people at your library to be able to create collection spotlights, I would consider getting that more localized admin profile that I was talking about earlier, where they can only create collection spotlights and book lists and collect and browse categories versus being able to do all of the other bells and whistles with Aspen. So if that is something of interest to you, maybe they haven't attended this training, but you have someone in mind, just give me a list of the people. I just need to know first and last name, what library they work at, and then I can get those created. Okay. Absolutely. You're welcome. So we are at 11:51. I will be sharing the recording of this training with you guys. Feel free to send it off to any colleagues that may be interested in learning about browse categories. I'm also going to be sharing links to the Aspen Help Center. So one of the great things about the Aspen Help Center is they have excellent, excellent help guides and documentation. And so they also include YouTube videos on creating browse categories, collection spotlights, and editing and managing those. So if you have Aspen admin privileges already, I also want to remind you that whenever you are working inside of Aspen, you have direct access to the Help Center from there too. So I'm going into my browse category groups. And remember, the groups is the containers of what I have in my Aspen instance. And so I have this link to documentation in the top right corner that's going to open up that help center for me. And I can see and look for all of the things I need. And I can see the YouTube videos there. Now, if you have any questions, you need help, you're getting stuck, that's when you're going to submit a help desk ticket to the WSIT help desk. And you can do that just by shooting an email to support@wsmail.org. You can send me an email at any time. It's just, it might be a little bit quicker to get a response if you do it through the help desk. And I think that's it for me. Any last minute questions, comments, grievances? All right, y'all. Well, I'll let you get back to your Monday. I hope this week is easy and kind to you all. And until next time, thank you so much.
Thanks, Alice.